So here's my question to you. Why was this policy implemented and quite successful in the British Army? We don't care who you are. We don't care about your educational level. Just pay money, get a patent, off you go. It's not an easy question. To make it easy and to save us some time, look at it from the point of your War Office, Department of Defense. What do you stand to lose and what do you stand to gain?
It's the age of empire, and they were looking for empire builders.
More specific. What do you stand to gain in case this person turns out to be a very talented officer? And what do you stand to lose in case this person turns out to be an idiot?
It's a win-win situation regardless.
Why?
Because the person's paid his dues, and if they're successful, the War Office gets a portion of whatever the spoils of war that he brings in.
Okay.
And so, even if the person is not effective, they've made their money right from the start.
So even if his entire regiment is killed, because of the stupid mistakes that the commanding officer made, his commission paid for ammunition, his commission paid for salaries. We just resell the patent to somebody else, and we make money again, right? So yes, that is the correct answer. Here is $1 million question. This policy has never been implemented in the British Navy. Why? Aha! Ships are too expensive. A man of war ship built in Elizabethan times accounted for 10% of a country's GDP. Do you really want to entrust something that costs 10% of country's GDP to a person with no education or no experience? By the way, that policy stopped in the British Army at the end of 19th century. Again, why? Equipment became very costly. So here's my answer to people who kind of, is project management a good idea or not a good idea? I mean, I heard some CEOs of companies say, well, doctors' offices don't have project management. Law companies don't have project management. Why should we? So my answer to them is such: if your projects are small and insignificant, that in case of failure you don't have too much to lose, you're probably more like British Army. And you don't need project management. You can assign it to whoever off the street. But if your projects are mission critical, very expensive, and you stand a lot to lose, like 10% of your country's GDP, like the case with the British Navy, maybe you need dedicated project managers to take care of the projects. Make sense? So again, to come up with the final formula, only the best and the most promising ideas must be selected for implementation, and that is the domain of project portfolio management. What constitutes the best project would change from company to company, and that's, by the way, would be a part of your exercise today. Company has to have an appreciation of its own throughput capacity and make sure that the total size of the projects thrown somehow corresponds to the throughput capacity of the project pipeline, which is, again, once more, a domain of portfolio management. These are the decisions that are made at the top, not at the project management level. And then you have to have a reasonable project scoping, estimation, planning, monitoring, and control mechanisms, aka project management, in order to deliver these projects successfully. Now, let's take a look at the 3 pillars of the portfolio management, and then we will look at the united view, as Adam said about 15 minutes ago. So what are the 3 pillars? The first pillar is that project mix should maximize the value for the company. It's a very simple statement to make, but personally it took me 3 years to figure out what constitutes value of a project for my particular company, and I'm a one-person company. And I will share it at the end of the presentation with you. It could be anything. Sometimes, if you're a product company, return on investment, NPV, IRR, those financial things, payback, play a very important role. Sometimes other things come into play, like alignment with strategy, feasibility, market attractiveness, etc., etc. There's quite a long list of things. Again, if I'm a software product company, probably NPV, IRR would be net present value, internal rate of return or return on investment would be very high on my priority list when it comes to value, right? Because I'm building software and I'm selling it for money for profit. If I'm say, one of my involvements was with Port Metro Vancouver. Return on investment wasn't a big deal for them. It was value to the community, value to the customers. As long as you stay at the break-even point, more or less. So quite a different picture. City of Vancouver would be yet another different approach to value. Development of a balanced portfolio. I will give you a couple of examples that I've seen in my career. Again, typically with high-tech, be it software, biotech companies, you talk to the C-level executive of the company and they go, oh, we're the market leader. Or our mission statement, we shall be the market leader in innovation and creativity. And I'm pretty sure if I look at the mission statements of your companies, I'll find the words leader, innovation, creativity somehow mixed. Am I right or wrong? Probably. And then I go, okay, what percentage of your projects are dedicated to research and development? New product development. 3%. Well, I'm sorry. Your portfolio balance does not reflect what your mission statement is saying. 3% for new products would be good enough for a bank or insurance company, but not for an aggressive software company. The third one is probably the most difficult one to police, so to speak, is that your projects are strategically aligned and truly reflect the business strategy. Easy way of seeing if the senior executives of the company follow that rule is that go through the list of projects and say, why are you doing this? Because if someone says, well, a CEO walked into the room and said, wouldn't it be really cool if we could do this? Maybe this is not really strategically aligned. I'll give you one example. Let's say I'm a product company. Let's say my strategy for the next 3 years says, we shall penetrate Asian markets. We shall go aggressively into Asian markets. And then I'm looking at the list of projects resulting from that initiative. Project 1 says, we shall acquire a company in China. Project 2, we shall sign a partnership deal with a company in Japan. Project 3, we shall open a branch in Brussels. Do you see the odd one out? Which one is it? Obviously the Brussels one, right? Because last time I checked, Brussels was in Europe. And our mission statement is to penetrate Asian markets. So maybe this one is a good candidate for, well, wait a second. Once we start going into Europe, we will do that one. Make sense, guys? Again, these are very simplistic examples just to illustrate the point. What does project portfolio management do? It prioritizes and selects the right candidates for the project portfolio for the project that you're going to implement. Because always, inevitably, I haven't seen yet a company where senior executive would tell me, you know what, I have way too many resources, way too few projects, and too many resources. Typically, it's the other way around. I want to do this much, but I only have the capacity for this much. And it's typically the smart executives who even come to that realization that I have this many projects and this many resources. And then you have to maintain the pipeline. Now, remember I said hold that thought? This is the typical explanation, typical flow of a project, starting from the idea, the inception, all the way through to a successful completion. What I've done here, I've divided them in several stages. Business case stage, which is pre-project management, and then project charter, which is the first stage of project management, to project planning, to project execution. And then I've divided them into 3 domains. PPM stands for project portfolio management, aka decisions typically being made by executives, final decisions. They get the input from project managers, but the final decisions are being made by senior people. SM stands for scope management. Those of you who are in software development, this is business analysis, requirements engineering. And then project management, which is estimation and planning, etc. Make sense? So in a classical approach, someone at the executive level says, wouldn't it be really cool if we could do this? Here's a project idea. Again, for simplicity, I'm going to default to a house example, like a family home example, so that everyone can relate to that. Let's say I say, being an executive, I say, let's build a family home and sell it for profit. Let's go back to that Caribbean house example. Then I call in the scope management expert. In this particular case would be the architect. In software world, that would be the business analyst. And I would throw some high-level features at him. You know what? I want it to be between 3 to 5 bedroom, between 3 to 4 bathroom, between 3 and maybe 5, very high level, 3 to 5,000 square foot, maybe Victorian style home. Right? And he records all of that information. VHL stands for very high level. Right? This is how projects typically progress with the iterative process. Then it comes to the PM, and PM says, looks at it and says, you know what, yeah, I can give you a very high level estimate for that project. Cost of building that house would be anywhere between $200,000 and $400,000. Very wide range. Again, completely fake numbers, obviously, because I don't know. All of that information is going back to the senior executive, who maybe has some projections about the revenue. And he can say something along the lines of, you know what, in the business case, again, let's assume that return on investment is the only variable he uses. I am projecting revenues of 100K, and I'm going to build a house for 50K. Make sense? Just some random numbers being picked. I mean, I'm assuming it will going to cost me $50,000 to build a house, and $100,000 is the revenue I can get from that. Return on investment from that is 100K minus 50K divided by 50K, and that would be 100%. Is it a good investment? Good project? Obviously, 100% return on investment. Then the project is being assessed. Again, for simplicity, let's just assume it's being assessed only on return on investment. You know, positive, we go ahead. Negative, we don't go ahead. It gets to go kill decision. In reality, it's the 3 things that you look at: the value, the balance, and the strategic alignment. Is it a good value to us? Does it preserve the desired balance of our portfolio? And the third one, is it even strategically aligned with whatever we're doing? If the answer to all of these questions is yes, and we have enough resources, it's being passed on back to the architect and say, okay, now go and estimate it, you know, capture the scope at a maybe more detailed level. And the architect can say, okay, we shall go with a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom, between 3,000 and 3,500 square feet project. It gets passed on to the project manager. Notice that although different people play the role, it's all part of one organism, so to speak. Is it making sense, guys? Project manager estimates it at a high level. And if you have your background in your project management, he writes a project charter. At the project charter stage, he can still say, you know what, yes, we can generate $100,000 and we can build it for 50K. So still, it's 100K minus 50K divided by 50K, 100%. So it's still a good idea. We're still investing into that.